in aloha wear, which is aloha shirts and muumuus. And I used to work at that hospital. I did one of my pre-doctoral internships there, and Jerry and I were asked to come back a few years after that to speak at the hospital to both the residents as well as the staff. And it was such a great reminder, because if you look out in the audience, you couldn't tell who was working there and who was a resident, who was a patient. And it made us remember that fine line. Jerry, you often talk about the fine line between being insane or not insane, and those labels that we put on each other.
Yes, if I had an opportunity of rewriting the big book that they have where diagnoses are made for people who have psychiatric disorders, I would have it as one page and one sentence, and it would say, we're insane when we're not experiencing ourselves as love and light and giving that love away. And if you take that definition seriously, most of us are insane most of the time. But we can live one moment at a time, like a timeless moment, and say, I'm going to choose to be insane, to be sane today, in this moment, by looking past any kind of negativity and seeing the innocence and the love in each person, and seeing that same in myself, to let go of the things we feel ashamed about or the things we wish we hadn't done, to let go of guilt, see the value in that, and to see the value of really truly forgiving. Doesn't mean the other person has to change, but it means we're no longer going to hold on to those negative thoughts that tend to poison our mind and make us sick. Lack of forgiveness has been proven scientifically to be dangerous to our health.
Right. Oh, you often say comparisons can give us cancer of the soul.
Yes.
And I think unresolved relationships and unresolved grievances also can really create havoc with our bodies.
You know, one story that you have in one of our books called Finding Our Way, not Finding Our Way Home, but Finding Our Way Home. It was about your stepfather who died, and there was a lemon tree where he lived, and he was telling you that you wanted to take the lemon tree out, as I remember. But that was a very powerful story about that.
Well, it reminds us of the story Jerry's referring to from Finding Our Way Home is really about the power of how we are connected.
Yeah.
And my stepfather of 36 years, who I introduced to my mother after my father died, we were very, very close. And he began to get ill, and we moved him and my mother into a new, a simpler condominium. And there was a garden outside, and before he got there, I didn't get a chance to do the plantings. And as he came out to the patio, he loved to garden, and there was a big, beautiful blue pot, and in it this little stalk was sticking up, a little piece of wood, and I meant to pull it out. And I said, "Oh, Pop, I will change that in for flowers." And he says, "No, no, no." And he insisted that I keep it there. He said, I want to see what that is. And so he watered it and nourished it. And it began one day, it popped up a little leaf, and then it grew and grew larger and larger. And it wound up that it was a lemon tree. And the lemon tree was beautiful, but it didn't bear any fruit. And then gradually my stepdad, Larry, died. And it was about 2 years later. The tree had always bloomed, but nothing, they had lived there, because it was about 6 years and it had never bloomed. Never had gotten lemons on it. And my mother called me one day and she said, "You can't believe all the lemons on the lemon tree." So I went over, and she had taken them off the next day, and they were all full and large, and she had put them in the kitchen. And she said, "I have 35 lemons here, and I'd like you to take some home." And I said, "That's wonderful." When she said that, I heard a voice, and it sounded like my stepfather, and it said 36, and I went, "Oh." I said, "Mom, do you think that there were 36 lemons?" And she said, "Oh no, there were 35. I said, "Oh, okay." And then I heard, what I knew was my stepfather's voice. He said, "Tell her there are 36. And I said, "Oh, Mom, I think I hear Larry speaking and saying that there are 36 lemons, not 35. And she said, No, I counted them. There were 5 bowls, and there were 7 in each. And I said, oh, okay. And then I left and I went to go inside, and I heard very clearly my stepfather say in my head, tell her there's 36 lemons, one for each year we were married. So I went out and I told my mother this, and she began to start to cry because she said, oh, no, but I know there were 35. And I said, it's all right, Mom. You just forget about it. Don't worry. And as I went to walk away, I heard her cry out, and she said, oh my God, there were 36 lemons. Your sister came to breakfast yesterday and told me she was going to take a lemon off the tree. That was before I took the rest off and counted them. And so we hugged each other and we cried together. And it just reminded me how closely we are all connected, whether we are in these bodies or not. So much of what attitudinal healing is about is remembering that all minds are joined, and that love is extended and received always.
We find that using attitudinal healing principles, gratitude is so important. To allow ourselves to every day to say, love is the way I walk in gratitude. And I know Meister Eckhart once said the most important prayer is 2 words, to say thank you about no matter what happens on your plate. And Diane wrote a book called Sounds of the Morning Sun, and she wanted to get the best illustrator she could. And she found out the best illustrator wasn't in New York City, but was living 20 minutes from us. I won't mention his name, a fictitious name like John Smith. I said, gee, I had a patient by that name when he was maybe 7 years old. I wonder if it could be the same person. Can I go with you? And she said, sure. And it turned out it was the same person now. He's a famous guy in his late 30s or early 40s. And we spent about 2 hours talking with him. And
he has 2 children, the same age.
It was a wonderful experience. And then just before I left, Diane left, he said, could you wait a minute? And he went to get something. And I think I mentioned to Diane that my office used to be on a big wharf, and I used to find that kids talk easier when they have a fishing pole in their hand. And when he had his birthday, I gave him a small fishing pole. Well, when this young man came back, now mind you, this is about 35 years later, he came back with the same small fishing pole I gave him as a little child. And he had hanged on to this all these years. And I just began to cry. It was the biggest thank you I think I ever received in my life. And it was just a big reminder that oftentimes it's the small things that are even more important as gifts to everyone. And in attitude healing, we think the gift of our own peace to share with another person, the gift of our own unconditional love, that's the biggest gift that we can give to another person and ourselves. And being able to accept this gift from others in a higher power sure helps a lot.
And it's certainly a gift for us to be able to do this today and to share with you. And we'll be with you in consciousness at the concert. And Jerry, is there anything else you'd like to share?
Just that gratefulness that we can be here with you, and the gratefulness that you're there to making some kind of decision to say, hey, I want to learn how I can change some of my thoughts so I can be a happier person and a more loving person, and realize that relationships are for joining, not separation.
Have a beautiful day and a wonderful conference. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
Adios.